What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to talk about the legendary rivalry between the Lakers and Celtics, but first, as always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with the latest uploads. The rivalry between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics dates back to the very beginning of the NBA. Let's take a trip down memory lane, looking at the tales of some of the best players to have ever graced the league. This rivalry shows how powerful these two franchises are, and how they've dominated the NBA in the league's first 4 decades, culminating in a fascinating, decade-long duel for glory in the 1980s. Prior to the 1980s, both franchises had already enjoyed a golden era, respectively. The Lakers first dominated in the 1950s after navigating a major organizational crisis. Basically in 1947, the Detroit Gems, if you can believe it, nearly folded after failing to stir up any interest in the state of Michigan. So, to keep the franchise alive, it relocated further west to Minnesota, becoming the Minneapolis Lakers. Having avoided bankruptcy, the Lakers capitalized on the struggles of their peers in order to secure star center George Mikan, who led the team to the NBL title. NBL, of course, being the National Basketball League. We're going way back here. Alright, so boom. Ahead of the 1948-1949 season, Minnesota joined the Basketball Association of America, known as the BAA, which would merge with the NBL to become the NBA in 1949. You got me? Those Lakers won 5 championships in 6 years to debut the new league, becoming the NBA's first ever dynasty. In fact, the Lakers' superiority over other teams facilitated the league's introduction of the 24-second shot clock and the goaltending rule. The Celtics rose to the top in the late 1950s following the arrival of head coach Red Auerbach. Over the next years, Auerbach added key pieces through the draft, selecting Bob Cousy with the 3rd overall pick in 1950 and Bill Russell with the 2nd overall pick in 1956. That same year, the Celtics beat the St. Louis Hawks to claim their first NBA championship. Boston found another gem in the 1958 draft when they took Casey Jones in the 2nd round. That following year, the Celtics swept the Lakers in the finals to win their 3rd NBA title. They would go on to defend it 7 times in a row, setting a record of consecutive titles that remains unmatched in American professional sports to this day. I personally don't think that record will ever be broken, but you never know. The Celtics only lost once during the 1960s, falling to Wilt Chamberlain's Philadelphia 76ers in the 1967 Eastern Conference Finals. 6 of those title wins were against the Lakers, who had moved to California in 1960. That Lakers squad had now Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor. Losing 6 finals to the same team with that squad has to be demoralizing for everyone involved. I can't even front. But Chamberlain's arrival in LA only fueled the rivalry. Wilt and Bill Russell have been perennial MVP favorites, altogether claiming the award 8 times during the 1960s. Even though they were rivals on the court, the two remained friends. That is, of course, until they faced off in the 1969 finals. The Lakers took the first 2 games, but the Celtics tied things up twice to take the series to Game 7. In a win-or-go-home showdown for the chip, LA fell down 15 points in the 3rd quarter, but they pulled off a spectacular 4th quarter run, up until Wilt Chamberlain had to miss the final 6 minutes due to a knee injury. Bill Russell has always said that even though they won the finals, Wilt's injury infuriated him, as he thought his once friend had copped out, putting an asterisk next to the Celtics title. And it was the last game of Bill Russell's illustrious career. The Lakers put together one of the most dominant teams in NBA history to win the 1971-72 title, featuring Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Gail Goodrich, Pat Riley, and Jerry West. But this victory would be LA's only title in the 3 decades that separated the Minnesota era and the arrival of Showtime. The Celtics entered the 1980s with 13 NBA championships, over twice as many as the Lakers' 6. Even worse, Boston still led 7-0 in finals meetings with the Lakers. But for the new era of the 1980s, it would be 2 new protagonists who would carry on the next chapter of this rivalry. The Lakers selected Magic Johnson with the 1st overall pick in the 1979 draft. Larry Bird, who was the number 6 pick in the 78 draft, joined the Celtics the following year after graduating from Indiana State. Magic said he used to look at Larry's stats first thing after every game. He stated, "If he had a triple-double, I knew what I'd want that night. If he had 20 rebounds, I knew I needed to get 20 assists that night." Funny enough, Larry Bird shared the exact same sentiment, saying he would start his mornings by looking at the box scores to see what Magic did. He didn't care about anything else. The competition in the NBA was getting tougher during the 80s, as the league grew from 23 teams in 1980 to 27 in 1989. But still, it was the two giants from the East and West Coasts who dominated their conferences, only this time neither team had a monopoly on the championship. LA's razzle-dazzle met Boston's gritty, calculated game. This rivalry became a clash of cultures, East Coast versus West Coast, with two generational talents who happened to be of a different skin color, which did matter due to racial tensions in America at the time. The Lakers and Celtics finished the rookie seasons of Magic and Bird with the two best records in the NBA. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won his sixth and final MVP award. Larry Bird won Rookie of the Year, but Magic had the last laugh that year, winning 1980 Finals MVP after winning a championship in his first attempt in the league. The following year, injuries and internal disagreements derailed the Lakers' title defense as the Celtics won their 14th championship, which carried over into 1982, resulting in head coach Paul Westhead's dismissal and Pat Riley's takeover. Following Riley's promotion, the Lakers steadied the ship and went 50-21 over the remainder of the season before meeting the 76ers in the 1982 Finals, who had just beaten Boston. The Lakers reclaimed the title, but Philadelphia ended up winning the following year. They were only one of two teams to win a title in that decade outside of LA or Boston, the other being the Bad Boy Pistons in the 88-89 season. But then the Celtics won in 1984, extending their run of consecutive finals wins over the Lakers to 8. LA didn't have to wait long for a rematch, as they ended up facing the Celtics the very next year and finally managed to beat them, closing it out in 6 games. Once the Lakers broke the curse, they followed up with another finals victory over Boston 2 years later, and after that, the Celtics wouldn't appear in the finals for another 21 years. That's up until 2008, when the basketball gods put them up against the Lakers yet again. Pierce, Allen, Garnett, and Rondo beat Kobe and company, only to face the Mamba 2 years later and lose in 7. It goes without saying that this is one of, if not the greatest rivalry in all of sports. The current Boston Celtics, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, were just defeated in the NBA Finals by the Golden State Warriors, but it's safe to say that the Boston franchise is in good hands for the future. The Lakers, on the other hand, have a lot of question marks with the injury concerns of Anthony Davis, inconsistency of Russell Westbrook, and the ever-so-aging LeBron James. But if LeBron can somehow manage to lead those Lakers to just one more NBA Finals, I have a funny feeling the guys in green might be waiting for them on the other side, and the rivalry can be officially reborn. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and follow League Alerts on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for the best NBA coverage out there.